So one of the places where I find this so interesting, the indigenous perspective, 5,000 years of indigenous wisdom. It's not scientific, but it is accurate. And it helps us to understand our relationship to ourselves, to life, to the earth, to the past, and the way we work together. Science is only about 300 years old, and the scientific perspective that you and I are all steeped in. And even if we've done so much work on our own to transcend our Western culture, Western traditions, we have all been steeped in the belief that we live in a world of struggle, a world of competition, survival of the strongest. We've all been told when we were kids we live in a dog-eat-dog world. And these ideas, they're not that we talk about them every day, but they're so much a part of our culture because science began to disseminate them in the 1800s, early 1900s. Our civilization is based upon these ideas of struggle, competition, survival of the strongest. The economic system that's breaking right now in the world is based upon survival of the strongest. The way we're trying to solve our problems in the Middle East, the way we're trying to solve the problems of diminishing resources. And the old thinking is no longer working. And the reason it's no longer working is because those beliefs are based, we now know, in principles that are false assumptions of science. Both Bruce and I talk about new discoveries. So these aren't our opinions or hypotheses or theories. It's peer-reviewed science has now overturned 300 years of traditional scientific thinking and is telling us that nature is actually based upon a model of cooperation and what biologists call mutual aid. And we all know competition happens, but it's not the rule, it's the exception. We now understand that life is not a random event. It is something very, very specific that happened, and the DNA is telling us this, that human life is not a random event. The fossil evidence is telling us this. Civilization is older than 5,000 years old. The archaeology is pushing advanced civilization, technologically advanced civilizations back into the end of the last ice age 13,000 years ago. All of this changes the way we think of ourselves, and it changes the way we go about solving our problems. So that's the good news. The flip side is there is a reluctance, and in some cases, a staunch resistance to sharing this in the mainstream. So you're not seeing this in mainstream television, mainstream documentaries. Public classrooms and textbooks are not sharing the new discoveries. So we have an entire generation of young people now who are being steeped in the false assumptions of science that have led to the problems that we're facing right now. And they're being asked to solve them through the same thinking. So my question that I've asked is, how can we possibly meet the issues of our time if we're not even honest about the issues? And we can talk about this as much as you like, but I'm going to share with you right now, you are not being given the facts of climate change. It's not what you're being told publicly. You're not being given the facts of the global economic meltdown. It's not being shared. I was in Zurich, and in Zurich it's common conversation. You get to this country, people don't even know about what is actually happening at the root of the financial system of the world. So it is a fact that we're living what is now being called a time of extremes. It doesn't mean they're bad things or good things, it just means they're really big things. And the thinking of the past will no longer work to solve the problems and the issues. And that opens the door to new possibilities. That's why we're speaking and sharing at the UN tomorrow. And one of the keys for me, and one of the principles, this is where it all comes together, is in the indigenous peoples that I've spent time with, the women and the men, the families, the elders.
Oh yeah, your cell phones and pagers.
The key for these people, they have been through times in their history very similar to what we're living through in ours right now. And if we have the wisdom, we can learn from what worked with them and what didn't, and the things that worked, do a lot of, and what didn't work, stop doing it in our time. Resilience is the word that comes up again and again. And when you talk about resilience in the Western world, the modern world, there's a sense that resilience, and it's actually defined as the ability to return to a normal functioning, or the ability to spring back after a traumatic event on a personal a community or a national or global event has happened. And that kind of resilience, we're all familiar with it. It's worked in the past. We've experienced it in our lives. There's an expanded form of resilience, and the Stockholm Resilience Center is pioneering a lot of the work with this. It's a way of thinking and living that makes room for the extremes in our lives each day, so we can thrive in the midst of the extremes because we have allowed for them in the thinking and living, rather than trying to live our lives as if this change is not happening and then acting surprised when something goes wrong, like a severe weather event. We're going to see the severe weather events because we are in a cycle of climate change that's here to stay, at least for our lifetimes. As a geologist, I can tell you the ice cores of Antarctica, I have no political agenda. So, and I have no academic credibility to defend. I can tell you exactly what those ice cores are saying to us, and it's not what we're hearing on mainstream. What you're hearing on the mainstream is a negotiated story, and they're quick to tell you that. It's a negotiated story that's left out some of the vital details. So the good news is that we already have all the solutions. For every major issue, all the big problems in our world, we have the solutions, and Bruce and I talk about this all the time. The greatest crisis, I think, that we're facing is a crisis in thinking that has yet to make room in our lives for the solutions that already exist in the world. We have enough food to feed every mouth of every human on this planet. Right now, there's no shortage. The food is not the problem. It's the politics and the thinking that won't allow it to get in the right places. We have forms of energy that produce no greenhouse gases, that are inexpensive, abundant, that could fuel every home of every human on the face of the earth that chooses to have power in their home. It's not the technology that's the problem.